Well, ceramic bearings were expensive about 20 years ago, but nowadays they can beat the beginner grade steel ball bearings in price. So how these ceramic bearings lowered their price in these 20 years? Who paid for the price difference? The government of China paid for it. The taxpayer of China paid for it. Of course, you pay for it too, but you are not only giving them your money, you are also giving up your independence. Well, there are worries that I'm getting too political when I'm talking about China, but it never gets too political. That is because they had 30 years of political reforms. Everything apolitical or refused to serve the regime either perished or replaced, simply ceased to exist anymore. So when we talk about China nowadays, it's all about politics. Hi fellow skaters, this is Max. Welcome to Romantic Skate Workshop. I have so many stories to tell today. I need to read from my notes. In previous videos, I introduced some cheap ceramic bearings, one from 55 Skate Shop and one from CH Skates. This time I will properly introduce them in this video and how China lowered their price 5-fold in these 20 years. Well, first of all, these ceramic bearings from the 55 Skate Shops, which is a very typical retail shop in TaoBao of China. TaoBao is the China's version of eBay, Amazon, or any customer-to-customer trading. Since most skate companies moved their production to China around 20 years ago, it will take the Chinese just a few phone calls or emails to secure some surplus or off-record production from those factories. Well, it happened before and it will happen again. The 55 Skate Shop made a very bold claim on their ceramic bearings that they use the same material as the ONS. Well, it's been that way for over 3 decades. There was a story, a girl from Taiwan have some decides to send some blueprints to a factory in China and ask for a price quote in manufacturing. When she received the quote in return, she already saw that factory is rolling out the product already. We people from Hong Kong have a lot of stories about copyright problem in that area. Well, on the other hand, the CH Skate is much more interesting in my point of view. It is a brand created by skaters in China. They also make their own decks, trucks, wheels, and of course they have connection to factories in China, but they know what they are looking for and they know where to find it. So they picked the best factory there and focus on the quality of their product. It is interesting that CH Skateboard got a website for online shopping. However, the price on the website is higher than in TaoBao. Dual pricing is a common practice there, especially for overseas buyers, which include Hong Kong. Since the average income in China still substantially lower than American, retailers at TaoBao really need to squeeze their margin of profit to survive the extreme competitive China market. Well, it's a rat race there. As China have a very large population, competition there is real intense. The rat race is just everywhere. How come ceramic bearings is getting cheaper and cheaper over time? So after decades of decoration and facelifting, I believe most people forget that China is a communism or socialism country. Well, usually people were short-sighted and they rarely care about what happens before they were born. If you look at China in these 10 years, China looks great. They have strong economy, strong military, nice high-speed rails, tall skyscrapers, and people are improving their lives drastically. And there are a lot of crazy rich Chinese people. Well, that's exactly what they want you to look at. Those were from the sandbox of China. Well, China does not follow capitalism. It is running on command economy. For example, steel production of China increased by 175% between 2000 and 2005. It will never happen in capitalism market, and it's only a very small part of the story. That is because China did not follow the supply-demand principle of capitalism. It is never a free market, and it will never be. Several industrial hubs such as Shenzhen were special economy zones, basically a capitalistic sandbox to attract investments from overseas. It's the show window for the rest of the world. In those sandbox cities, they got a lot of green lights on regulations, policies. Most importantly, government of China can pull their plug anytime. Production was encouraged by high subsidies, well, if it fits the interests of the states. Yes, there are many companies in China, while state-owned companies have strategic important area, such as cars, communication, high-end electronics, etc., etc. Yes, you can have a shop and start your own business, but once you get certain influence, the state will get involved. And that's the downfall of many tycoons in China. Yes, lower class in China can have their own shop, but trickle-down effect won't work there. Nepotism played an important factor in Chinese culture. There's a saying, connection over ability. And here's another story. A courier company grew rapidly because it was run by the in-law of chief of custom. Their courier trucks can pass the border without inspections, while other companies were checked repeatedly. So the courier company run by in-laws of the chief dominates the market in the end. Big companies always largely owned and run by the state or from the you-know-who party. And they are also benefit most from subsidies. Yes, some people accumulate wealth and getting very rich, but most still struggle for survival. With generous subsidies, factories don't need to play by the rules of the market. They don't have to worry about competition anymore. They only need to focus on production, and the more they produce, more money they get. As time goes by, they will unleash their stock towards the market. The opened, uncontrolled market, especially those in capitalism countries, will be flooded with low-priced items, which break the market equilibrium, driving small or medium local companies out of business. When people close their factory, trade experience and secrets will be lost forever. Those manufacturing machines will be sold as scrap metals, perhaps shipped away towards China. Yes, it is attractive to open a factory in China because they have cheap labor, cheap resources, less restriction on production, and there are also push factors alongside from those pull factors. Let's take an example in skateboarding. Santa Cruz Skateboard moved their production to China around 2010, not simply because they are going after the money. They were denied access to the loading dock of their production house because new residents there complained about the noise. Even it is an industrial area. It is easy to file complaints in America. In the democratic self-governed states, old-timer of the industrial area driven away by a few new residents. It just looked impossible to me, but it actually happens in United States. Well, recently, a New York City high-rank official was caught being a Chinese agent. Did they push some policy that fits the agenda of the Chinese government? And I got a very long list for Chinese agents and spies got caught in America. Who knows what kinds of influence they made to influence local politics and to push industry out of their home country. I would say the Chinese is pretty successful in attracting manufacturing companies in Americans. So nowadays Americans are struggling to produce their own barbecue scrubbers. They are losing their ability to be independent. They are losing their autonomy inch by inch by choosing cheaper products from China. Well, the trade war we know today already started decades ago, and it is 2003 to be precise, while China joined the WTO. Free market is not the only thing exploited by weaponizing the economy, by political decisions, but since my channel is more focused on skateboarding and I'm not going in depth. And I'm from a very small city, Hong Kong, and it's pretty much endgame for a lot of business here. Hong Kong did manufacture a lot of stuff in the 60s and 70s, and China opened up their market and attract a lot of Hong Kong factories up there. But little by little, those factories end up closed or took over by the Chinese over there. A famous actor, Sam Lee from Hong Kong, he had a restaurant in China for around 2 years, and one day, all of a sudden, his system got hacked and he lost pretty much everything. And of course, he complained to the authority. But as I said before, nepotism plays an important factor in Chinese culture, as the perpetrator is one of their guys. And Sam Lee have no connection over there. He basically have to give up everything, and eventually he lose everything, and there's nothing he can do about it. The same happened to many investors from Hong Kong. They simply got stripped and they got thrown back to Hong Kong. And nowadays online shoppings, TaoBao, PDD is invading the small Hong Kong market. The small business cannot compete with corporate giants, let alone an entire country. It's a dilemma for me to disclose these cheap bearings because these ceramic bearings is good in quality and they are cheap in price, but it will also hurt the skate industry in another way. Well, especially bones bearings in this case. Well, I care about skateboarding, but I also care about politics, because politics affect my life very much. Well, it's getting more and more important each day here, and I just can't ignore it. McCarthyism disappeared in United States during the 50s, but the reverse McCarthyism is still lingering around in China. In one hand, people in Hong Kong may enjoy cheaper products, but on the other hand, local retail and small business is pretty much choked to death. Well, in the end, there will be less and less choice, and as the production became less diverse in the market, in the end, what's left is monopoly and total dependency. So after you lose your autonomy, you stick to whatever they gave you, and if they decide to shut you out, you will be in a very, very big trouble. So after all these stories, are you going to buy these cheap ceramic bearings from China or more expensive bearings from your local shop? Well, I think we are all adults here, and just make your own choice while you still have a choice at all. Okay, that's about the story of these ceramic bearings, and there's more interesting products coming in the next video. Okay, this is Max. Welcome to Romantic Skate Workshop. I'll see you next video. Bye.